here. Got the technology working. So I just got back after a month on retreat. It's great, just not long enough. So, but after a month, the mind is calm and settled. Newer experiences are starting to happen, but then it's time to go home. So in our last class, we finished talking about the unwholesome karma creating chittas, number 1 to 12. We spent some time on the unwholesome chittas in general. Then we talked about the attachment rooted, the delusion rooted, then with doubt, and then with restlessness. So we've been going very slowly through the whole 12 of unwholesome karma creating chittas. The next will be the beautiful karma creating chittas, 31 to 38. But before we go into that, I think now might be a good chance. Been away a few weeks, and there's been so long since we started on this journey. Let's recap our progress so far. So this is a summary. The next few slides are a summary of what we've been talking about so far. Hopefully it's all a review, but it may trigger some additional or new questions. Starting with this, the Sangha, the Abhidhamma Sangha, which is the compendium or manual of Abhidhamma written about 1,000 years ago, they took this approach to categorizing chittas. 1 to 12 are the creating new karma and wholesome chittas. Then number 13 to 27 are the rootless, unwholesome resultant, wholesome resultant. Then the rootless functional, unrelated to karma, 28 to 30. The beautiful, sensory wholesome, 31 to 38, sensory resultant, and so on. So this is the sequence that I have been talking about since I started 25, 30 years, 25, or even reading this stuff. And it's the one that you're probably familiar with. I want to make a point here that this is not the original sequence found in the original Abhidhamma texts, nor is it necessarily the most insightful way. So this sequence of breaking things into 6 columns and 3 categories, a chart of 18 different items from the Abhidhamma Sangha, is only one approach. Previous to that, the Visuddhimagga, and going back to the Dhammasangani, the first book of the Abhidhamma. So the first book of the Dhammasangani was written around 400 AD. The first book of the Abhidhamma, the Dhammasangani, was finalized around 2,000 years ago, and they use a different order. They, instead of dividing things into 18, divide things into 3. Kusala, wholesome or good. Akusala, unwholesome or bad. And then avyakata or indeterminate. And so the order that they give them in is this particular order. And though they don't use these terms in the Visuddhimagga or the Dhammasangani, I'm inserting them on this chart for a quick comparison. I'm not going to discuss the pluses and minuses of the different approaches. I just want to highlight that up until 1,000 years ago, this is the way things were organized. The chittas were organized besides 89. The total didn't change. The list of them didn't change. It's just they were organized this way. And if I go back to 1,000 years ago, they fine-tuned it, if you will, or changed the sequence and did it according to the Sangha. However, the way that for this class, I said, well, they changed it 1,000 years ago. Why don't I change it again? Let's come up with a different way of organizing the chittas. And I asked myself, is there a new way that might provide some insight, some value into structuring the cheetahs. And I thought, okay, the sequence, the sense door process, the mind door process, the sequence with which the cheetahs arise, which ones come before which other ones. So that's the order that we have been doing presenting here, and that order is also reflected in the column on the side of the chart of the slide. So you've got starting with the life continuum, going to cheetah number 28, adverting in one category, sensing cheetahs 13 to 27, determining cheetahs, the comma creating cheetahs 1 to 12, 31 to 38, registration cheetahs, and then back to life continuum. This is the order that they arise, each one conditioning, preparing the mind for the next cheetah to arise, that happens according to the Abhidhamma. So I'm using this sequence as a approach as opposed to following the numerical sequence from the Abhidhamma or the grouping of three, the good, bad, indeterminate from the Dhammasangani and the Siddhimagga. So let's start the review in the life continuum cheetahs. These cheetahs arise in between processes and at the beginning of both the sense door process and the mind door process. So this is kind of like the starting point for anything that happens in the mind. Between any active process, there is this sleeping state, if you will. And I call it a sleeping state or life continuum because when you are in deep dreamless sleep, this is what happens. Think of it like this. At night, no dreams, the mind is just chilling, relaxing. That's life continuum. You get up during the day, things happen, and then at night, it goes back to that sleep mode. So this is the sleep mode in between the active aspects when the mind is not doing anything important. So, or not doing anything active, if you will. So the function of this life continuum cheetah, actually it's not one cheetah, it's many cheetahs in a row, or many identical cheetahs in a row, is to fill in the gaps when there's no sensing process and no thinking process happening. Technically, the first cheetah arising in a new existence, for example, when you were first conceived in this existence, the very first cheetah that arose, billionth of a second after conception, was a life continuum cheetah. And let's just say it happened to be life continuum cheetah number 39. Okay? For every other life continuum cheetah, whenever your mind is not doing something active, cheetah number 39 will appear again and again and again. The same cheetah, the same object, continually applying just to fill in the gap. If you're born with a cheetah number 40 as your life continuum, it's always again and again cheetah number 40. So the rebirth linking cheetah is the result of the karma which gave rise to the current existence, and all life continuum cheetahs in an existence are identical, like they're all 39, all 40, and they're all the result of the karma which gave rise to the current existence. So whatever karma drove me into this existence continues to have an effect constantly on the mind throughout this lifetime.
Excuse me, brother.
Yeah.
One of the kids.
Yeah, good.
The reverse thinking cheetah.
Yeah.
In the Javana process, when the dog process has the 7 level of negative karma. So one will be very heavy and this will be linking from cheetahs, which is linking cheetah. So my question is, the remaining what are the karma that is associating with the remaining cheetah?
Okay.
Does the remaining cheetah exist and fall to another life? Which carrying the karma a lot, or we does not carry the karma a lot?
Oh. Okay. there's a couple of things you can conflate it or combine a couple of points here, and I'll go through them now. You are referring to the Jhana Chittas, which are the karma creating chittas. In this diagram, those are the ones with the red, the cloud in the heart, okay? Now, this comes up a million or a billion times a million times a second. Let's just say a million times a second. You're going to have sense door process or a mind door process. You're going to get 7 of these. So there are countless, literally countless of these karma creating Jhana Chittas arising in an existence.
So the karma chitta is actually linked to the releasing consciousness.
Yeah, no,
The next level.
no, not gotten there yet. So in this existence alone, I've already created countless of these karma created chittas. Okay? Of that countless, as you pointed out, the first one, the 7, is the strongest compared to the other 6. And the is the weakest, and it can only give its result in this lifetime. The last one is the second weakest. It can only give its result in the next lifetime. When the 5 are the strongest, it can continue on forever until Arhatship. However, so there's, in this lifetime, I have created countless billions of these little comic seeds, if you will. I don't like to use the word seeds because it makes it sound like it's something tangible, but these comic potentials. However, in the last moment of this existence, one karma will come up. Only one of the countless billions from this existence and the billions and billions from previous existence, only one will come up. And it will provide the function of rebirth linking to drive me into the next existence. So of the countless billions from this existence and previous existence, one of them is going to come up at the moment of death. So that is the Chuti Chitta, last moment of life. In this existence, it expires, and then there's the rebirth linking Chitta, which is the first existence associated with the new existence. The first Chitta associated with the new existence, and it is the karmic result of one of the billions that has happened before. All right, so which one of these will it be of 7? It can be any, technically it can be any one of the 7. There's no association of which one it has to be. But I want to make the point here that at the moment of rebirth, it's only one of the countless billions. And why this is important, there is a sutta where the Buddha was explaining own views. He said that there were some people who attained jhana. And because of that jhana, they were able to look into past lives. And they had this idea about karma that doing bad things, you always get bad rebirth. Always leads to bad rebirth. Okay? However, and so this leads them into a way of thinking about karma. However, the Buddha said it's not always like that. Even though a person may have been bad their whole life, quote, bad their whole life, it doesn't mean that all the billions are bad. It's possible, less likely, but possible that a wholesome may bring up at the last moment. And that will trigger a good rebirth. So the reason you get a good rebirth is not because you are pure and good for the entire lifetime. It's because at that one moment, at the time of rebirth, there is it just happened. It's like there's a statistical probability The Buddha talked about this in the lump of salt sutta. The Buddha said, imagine that I have got a small rock of pure salt. If I put that in a small cup of water, the water is spoiled, it's salty. If I take that exact same size of rock of salt and put it in the river doesn't become salty. Why? It's basically, there's the same amount of salt, but it's diluted a lot more. So if you lead a good life, okay, generate lots of good karma, the unwholesome things that you may have done, and you've all done them, get diluted, if you will. And this is just an analogy. There's no real dilution taking place, but statistically, it's less likely to pop up at that moment of rebirth. So the key points that I want to drive here is that there are countless chittas that have happened, there are countless unwholesome, and hopefully countless wholesome that have been accumulated over this and previous existences, and only one of them will play the role of rebirth linking, creating the karma for the rebirth linking chitta.
But does the wholesome and unwholesome previous karma or previous chitta link to the relating people? But as a psychologist, when we identify someone or we write someone, the patient will be able to describe their previous life, what they see, what they feel, what they think.
Right.
So where does this images and all this wording come from?
Okay.
My argument is, all I want to know is, does the karma link to the linking consciousness and goes rebirth so that the karma is actually going to the next rebirth?
Karma causes the rebirth. Okay. Now, good rebirth or a bad rebirth depends on the karma that created it. We do not have, even a Buddha does not have the ability to look into exactly which chitta caused that karma. The Buddha called that one of the imponderables that will lead to madness. If you try to figure out exactly which chitta leads to which karma leads to which result. However, the general principle of good and wholesome leading to a good and wholesome result, that applies. And bad and unwholesome, when it matures, leading to a bad and unwholesome result, also applies. But if you want to know about which the chitta, which according to the Abhidhamma, what it lists 5 categories, or sorry, it lists the following categories. You've got what is called Garuka karma, weighty karma. So if you have killed your mother, killed your father, killed an arahat, wounded a Buddha, or maliciously caused a split in the Sangha, then if you've done any one of those things in your life, guaranteed, no about it, you're going to Niraya, hell, in the next existence. You can become a Buddha after that, but in the next existence, guaranteed going to hell. That's the only guarantee. Next is the death proximate karma. All right. So I don't think any of us have killed our parents, killed an arahat, wounded a Buddha, caused a split in the Sangha. So let's put that aside. It doesn't apply to us. What about the death proximate karma, the next most likely? That is what karma that arises close to the moment of death. And this is why, if you're with somebody who is dying, don't cry, don't say, oh, we'll miss you, because all you're doing is putting unwholesome emotions in their mind. What you should do, and what I did with my grandmother and my mother, is, because I was there at their deathbed, I talked about all the good things that they had done, even though they're not Buddhists, doesn't matter. I talked about the good things that they had done, the influence they had had, the wonderful life they had had. I wanted them to have rejoicing, happy thoughts. before they passed. I don't know if it was successful or not, but there I am, a son or a grandson with them, and that's the best thing that I can do for them. That is the death proximate karma. That's the second after the Garuka weighty karma. If there is no strong death proximate karma, then it is habitual karma, things that you do all the time. If, for example, you are a butcher and you spend your life twisting the necks of chickens, okay? That becomes that can become a habitual, you're constantly killing animals. That can become a habitual karma. On the other hand, if you are a meditator, like I am, and spend months at end developing the mind, that can become a habitual karma as well. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. There is one more Garuka karma in the commentaries they talk about. I talked about all the negative ones, right? The killing of the mother and father. On the positive side, if you pass away while in a jhana state, in a meditative jhana, guaranteed that's good. I know one of our classmates here was meditating and passed away. So I had no idea if she was in the jhana at that time, but I'm hopeful that that led to a good rebirth. Okay, so yeah.
I was just, maybe it's like heavy, it's like you will bypass the randomness of the last moment. Because if you are saying like that means the last moment, last one is because you said it's a guarantee, that means the randomness is taking out.
It brings priority. So there still will be.
It doesn't follow the randomness already.
It's not random. No, it cannot be random.
So we are referring to the product, the background.
Right.
Okay, jhana, just like I say, you die while meditating, and jhana you definitely. The other thing is I will ask will be change of lineage. That means like if somebody become a Sotapanna. I mean they are think Sotapanna.
Right.
What you mean the more like Sotapanna is like you die, you are definitely.
Okay, yeah, that's another guarantee. Lower realms, right?
So it's all like.
Yeah, that one is also, that was also Garuka weighty karma, and partial Garuka weighty karma.
Right. There is like you're fixed already.
Right, you're fixed.
So
Right.
we sort of like you bypass the mechanism or whatever you
Right.
call it, process.
The randomness, right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you've got the guarantee, which we've now expanded from the 5 heinous crimes to include jhana and sainthood, okay? Which probably won't apply to us. To death proximate, which is at the moment of dying, is there any waking karma nearby? So telling your someone, not crying, telling them that they had a wonderful life. Is second, third is the habitual karma, and then fourth is random. If there's no strong death proximate karma, there's no Garuka karma, weighty karma, no strong death proximate, no strong habitual karma, then some other karma will come in and play that role. Could be wholesome, could be unwholesome. Okay. Yep.
See, there are 5
Sorry, four.
or 4.
For that, 4 categories.
What happened sudden death? I mean, accident.
There is no sudden death. We're talking billions of a second.
So even an accident.
Yes, there's going to be
One of them will come.
yes, something will come.
Although, okay.
Okay.
As I can tell, when there's a sudden death, the mind is going into a confusion state. So when your mind is confused, that is why the spirit actually keeps on returning to the same thing over and over again. It's like when you jump down and commit suicide from a building, the mind is so confused that it continuously repeats itself. That means every second, every month, every day, you keep on jumping from the time within.
That is not something from the texts. Okay, what they say is if the last thought is, or I'm giving to, okay, from the suttas, I'll go right back to the suttas. A warrior came to the Buddha and said, in the army, they talk about a special heaven for brave warriors. Is it true? Buddha said, don't ask. The soldier asked a second time. Buddha said, don't ask. Soldier asked a third time. The Buddha said, well, since you've asked 3 times, no, it is not true. A soldier, depending on what's happening at the time of death, could end up either in hell or as an animal. In hell, if the mind is filled with anger, right? If you are in the middle of a battle and are angry at the enemy, want to kill the enemy, if that's the thought in your mind, then it will be hell. On the other hand, if you are confused, animal rebirth, animals don't think properly, they live on instinct. The next sutta in the same Sutta Nikaya, same chapter, an actor came to the Buddha and said, among we actors, there is a belief that if we're good, we're going to end up, a good actor will end up in the laughing heaven because we cause people to laugh. Is this true? Buddha said, don't ask. Again, he asked 3 times. The Buddha said, no, it's not true. If you die, depending on what's going on at the moment of death, they can end up either as a animal because of the delusion. Because what does an actor do? Their purpose is to create delusion, right? That's their purpose in life. Pretend and make other people believe something is not true. That's what an actor does. Or attachment, in which case they become a hungry ghost. So, depending on what happens to an actor, so this is why we should not idolize Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, and all those actors and actresses. Their profession is not a wholesome one. A friend asked me if, saying his daughter wanted to become an actress. I said, not a wholesome profession.
Wrong livelihood.
Yeah, wrong livelihood. Well, not quite wrong livelihood, but not a profession that encourages a healthy mind. So the Buddha did talk about those 2 examples. And so if the mind is filled with hate and anger, hell, or delusion, rebirth, animal or hell, attachment to going for praise or going for fame, you can become a ghost, hungry ghost, or that's right. It's ghost season, isn't it? Hungry ghost month. So yeah, I can understand. Yeah, why the questions. So, but the Buddha did not. He did make it. He did say to in the Vinaya that it is considered killing to commit suicide. Okay, he did make that rule in the Vinaya that suicide is killing, so therefore it is a it is something that monks are not allowed to do. Okay, but there was, I've not read any commentary saying that the person who commits suicide gets keeps reliving that moment like in a hell loop. What you do read about is in the Pitta Vatu. These are all the stories of the hungry ghosts and their lives. It's attachment that causes deceased beings to hang around a person, hang around a person, hang around a location, a building, or hang around, just hang around because they have this strong attachment wanting to stay near to them. Okay, so that's why the hungry ghosts we remember them, any of our relatives that may have been reborn as hungry ghosts, when we think of them and share the merit of our lives with them, that makes them happy. And that happiness can lead to a positive rebirth after their time in the hungry ghost realm has finished. That's why we do it. That's what, so we're not actually it's not like a bank account where we move merit to their account. No, it's just like when a parent sees their child do something good, it brings joy and happiness to the parent. So too, when the hungry ghost or a demon or a guardian demon sees us doing something good, it creates a positive thinking in their mind, which helps them in their existence. Okay. We got a little bit off track, but that's okay. So, life continuum cheetahs are typically beautiful and are why? Because human life is good. And are categorized according to prompted or unprompted, with understanding, without understanding, pleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. If we look at the list of 8 in the life continuum, 4 of them are prompted, 4 are unprompted. If you happen to be reborn with a prompted life continuum cheetah, that means that you are more passive. Unprompted, you're more spontaneous, more active as a base character. If you are reborn as with a life continuum with understanding, one of those 4 life continuum cheetahs with understanding, that means that you will be naturally drawn to spiritual things. Without understanding, not so interested in the spiritual things. And in fact, they explain that if your life continuum does not have understanding, 2 roots rather than 3 roots, then not possible for you to attain jhana or sainthood in this existence. So in order to attain jhana or sainthood, with understanding in your life continuum. And the fact that all of you have attended this class for so long proves to me that you're all with understanding, otherwise you wouldn't be motivated to. All right? So you have the potential for jhana and sainthood, all of you. Pleasant feeling is more of a jovial person. Neutral feeling is not so jovial. Kind of a neutral. So that's the life continuum cheetah. So remembering our sequence here, you got all these life continuum cheetahs going to the 5 sense door at verdict, number 28. So that's this one here in the sequence. They only arise in the sense door process. They don't happen in the mind door process, because their function of the 5 sense door inverting cheetah is to move or intercept the life continuum and orient the stream of consciousness toward the relative sense door. It's like this picture shows, it's like a switching station in life continuum, and then here in the orange circle there is the adverting, and it switches on one of 5 tracks. The eye door track, ear door track, nose door, tongue door, body door track. So it sends the mind somewhere to one of the 4 sense organs, one of the 5 sense organs, to go get some data. So it's based on a present, not past or future object, not on a concept. At a sense door in an object of sufficient intensity. So a strong sound may not be the loudest sound, but one that catches your attention is high intensity. The decision as to which door gets opened, it's not based on karma. Habits, the latent tendencies, including those character in previous existences, together with mental training developed by Vipassana practice, predispose to the mind how the mind responds when the stream of life continuum is interrupted by a sense thought process. Let me give you a couple of examples to illustrate this. Someone who is a musician has spent their whole life being close to music. They hear things differently than I do. They genuinely hear things differently because of the training, whether it's past existence or this existence or both. The training has caused them to have a habit of turning to the ear door very rapidly. I remember a question that I was asked in this class about 10, 15 years ago by a meditator, experienced meditator. She asked, why is it that when during a retreat, I can seem to watch things happening and it's like they're in slow motion, things seem to go, I can see things so fast. And the reason is because of the meditation experience, Vipassana practice, the mind is much more tuned to jump much more quickly. Normally, maybe the mind jumps once every 10 times a second to the eye. But because of Vipassana practice, it jumps 100 times. And so you get 10 times as much data coming in. I remember myself meditating and becoming aware of sensations just unbelievably fast. Physical sensations happening unbelievably fast. I went to the teacher during the interview. I said, I didn't think that the mind could work that fast. I didn't think that the mind could work that fast. The teacher said, the mind cannot think that fast. But mindfulness can work that fast. Mindfulness can be aware of things very, 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 very fast because you don't think. So because I was deep in meditation at that time, the mind was in a very sensitive mode. Because the musician is always sensitive to music, or the artist, they see things differently, visually. Okay? The cook, I mean, somebody who's a professional cook, or a sommelier, the wine taster, their taste or their smell is at a different level from other people because it's been trained that way, and the life continuum naturally goes to that particular door. Okay. Okay, so any questions on the inverted? All right, so far what's happened is life continuum has gone along, and then we've gone to one of the doors, ear, eye, nose, tongue, body. Let's talk about what happens during sensing at the ear, nose, tongue, or body. Again, this only arises in the sensory process, includes eye consciousness, ear, nose, tongue, body. And then there is two others, technical ones called receiving and investigating. Eye consciousness arises at the physical eye. Ear consciousness arises at the physical ear. So here in the sutras, they talk about specific location, in the Abhidhamma, they talk about a specific location where this chitta arises. It arises at the sensitive part of the eye. Today, we might call it the retina. The sensitive part of the ear, today we might call it the eardrum. They didn't use medical terms like that 2,500 years ago. They just referred to them as the sensitive part. Okay? So there are, then there's the sensitive part of the nose, the sensitive part of the tongue. The sensitive part of the body goes all over the body, except for the hair and the nails. Right? Those are the parts that are not part of the sensitive body. So basically the nerves. Okay? And they're categorized either as the result of unwholesome karma or the result of wholesome karma. So karma pops up three different ways. We've talked in some detail earlier about rebirth. That's a big function of karma. Second is when receiving or getting data in. So if there is a smell of garbage, smell of garbage, rotten eggs, right? The smell is a condition allowing some past unwholesome karma to ripen. If there's a smell of a rose, that rose, now the garbage didn't come from unwholesome karma. It's outside. The smell didn't come from unwholesome karma. But that smell is a condition for past unwholesome karma to ripen, and smelling consciousness that is the result of unwholesome karma to pop up. Similarly, a rose, smell of a rose, or for me, the smell of coffee. I like coffee. The smell of coffee is the allows a past wholesome karma to mature, to ripen. Okay, the coffee didn't come from wholesome karma. The smell of the coffee didn't come from wholesome karma, but the smell of the wholesome coffee, or the smell of the coffee, was a condition allowing wholesome karma to arise. The sense consciousness, whether it's eye, ear, nose, that is a result of unwholesome karma, the sense consciousness that is a result of wholesome karma, eye, ear, nose, are absolutely identical. They just have different conditions causing them to arise. Same with the receiving and investigating. Slight base. I'm not going to go into that. I put this 1 and 2 for investigating just to be technically accurate. I don't want to go through all that again. So, any questions on the sense entities? Okay. Now we come to what is probably the most important, or maybe the most important, of the chittas. The determining or mind or inverting. So after the data has come into the eye and or the sense organ, we gotta know what to do with it. That decision, if you will, is determined by the determining chitta. Similarly, go right back to the thought process. We see that the mind build process, when ideas come up, it starts with the mind inverting chitta, same chitta number 29. This is the one that takes as an input what has come before, and then goes to either wholesome karma creating or unwholesome karma creating. So this is the one that kind of steers the mind onto a wholesome track to create wholesome karma, or an unwholesome track to create unwholesome karma. So it exists in both the sense door process and the mind door process. The object, whether it is a sense object or a mental object, is now clearly presented, and the mind is facing it in a certain way, orienting toward that object in a certain way. Orientation of the mind is either unwise attention, or wise attention, it's an orienting chitta. It's kind of shifting you to face this way or shifting you to face that way based on what is behind you. Itself, it doesn't create karma, and it's not the result of karma, but it's what determines, it steers the flow toward karma creating chittas, wholesome or unwholesome. It depends on the intrinsic nature of the object. For example, for me, the smell of coffee, which is a intrinsically desirable smell, can lead me to either be attached to it or simply observe it. Natural decisive support the habits and the related tendencies together with the mental training developed capacity practice also influences the orientation. I gave a nice picture of this. Okay, to kind of help what made sense here. Imagine a person opening a door and a path is in front of them. And the path splits. Path based on wise attention, unwise attention leads to unwholesome karma being created. Path based on wise attention leads to wholesome karma being created. The boy is still at the door, hasn't walked through the door yet, but he's already facing a certain way. He's predisposed. He goes through the door, he's facing either right or left. He passes through the door facing left, passes through the door facing right, and that's going to determine he's not yet on that path of wholesome or unwholesome, but he's aimed at one of those directions. So the doorway represents the threshold of the determining cheetah in this analogy. Up until this point, the previous cheetahs were passive, ethically neutral. The doorway is the exit from the automatic process and enter into the world of intentional action. Everything that happened before this, there was no strong intention behind it. Now we're getting into intentional action, karma creating. Intention is karma. The fork in the road represents the two possible directions the mind can take during the karma creating stage.
When you talk about automatic process, so is this consciously or without conscious?
There is consciousness in every cheetah.
No, is he doing that consciously?
Oh, intent. Let's use the word intentional.
Intentional.
Intentionally is a better way of is a better word for it. No, there is no intent. I mean, for example, when I see that this cup of coffee, there's no intention behind that. However, based on the dots of color coming in and gluing together and coming up with an idea of that's a coffee, that's something desirable, then intention can come to drink the coffee, attachment rooted. That's in the unwholesome path, but I'm far. So everything that happened up so far, getting those dots of color on the retina, there's no intention involved. During those cheetahs, the mind is they're not creating any karma. I'm going to go back a bit to the chart. Okay. The life continuum are over here in the sense sphere result. They're not karma creating. They do not have active intention. They're not active intention. When you're asleep, dreamless sleep, there's no active intention going on, right? Then, averting down here, bicentennial averting, unrelated to karma. This is a functional, without roots, no intention. Sorry, carefully saying no intention. There's no active intention. I'll explain why I made that later. Sensing, which is 13 to 27, this group here, these are the result of past karma. There's no active intention. Determining, down here, number 29, determining consciousness or mind or inverting, no active intention. However, the ones with active intention, 1 to 12, 31 to 38, those are the karma creating. And that's the next one on the, that's when we start walking the path on the left road, the left side or the right side. Now, why was I saying there's no intention? And it's corrected myself. There is intention, volition, Chaitasika Chetana, but in all of these cheetahs, it does have the Chaitasika Chetana, but the Chaitasika Chetana, which is normally translated as intention, the volition, has a little bit different role. When it's active, or sorry, when it's not active, like in here, here, and here, and here, And here down here is sensory functional, and I'll talk about that later. The role that it plays is organizing. It's like a manager who organizes everybody in all the different chittasikas to do their job. Okay, you do this, you do that. Okay, you go over here, you do this, you do this. It's a manager. Passive, doesn't get his hands dirty. However, in the karma creating, unwholesome and beautiful, the boss rolls up his sleeves, gets in there, leads by example. He's the commanding general saying, we charge this way. That's intention with a capital I. That's karma creating. Simply being in the background and organizing and coordinating, that's passive intention, right? And I will tell you that when doing Dhammanupassana, observing the mind, all the different chittasikas doing their stuff, intention is one of the most, the Chaitana is one of the most fun to watch, because when observing Chaitana do its job, it's like it has everybody on the team in lockstep, coordinating, going, leading on, and that's the organizing function. It's also got a role of pulling everybody to common direction. These are the experiences of watching Chaitana in action, whether in the passive mode or in the passive mode down here, or the active mode, the creating new karma. Okay, so up until this point, everything was passive. Okay, automatic. The door is an automatic process, and leaving the door is automatic process as well. Right? We're now moving into the world of intentional action, the active intentional action of picking a path of wholesome karma creating or unwholesome karma creating. That's what the mind, that's what the continuum is doing. Okay, that makes sense? Okay, so the fork in the road represents the two possible directions the mind can take during the karma creating stage. So now you're moving from the passive mode of inside, you're opening the door is the threshold of the determining chitta, you're moving into the active real world of creating karma. And the orientation of the person looking left and right as they pass through the door represents the habitual inclination and quality of attention that governs how the determining chitta performs its function. So unwise attention steers the person down to turn left. Wise attention steers the person to turn right. So we haven't left, we're still inside, we haven't passed through that doorway yet, but we're facing one direction or another, depending on wise attention or unwise attention. And that's going to lead to one of those karma creating paths. Agree? Okay, the unwholesome karma creating chittas. 1 to 12. We spent quite a bit of time on them. Rise both in sense door, mind door process. If there is no wise intention, if there's unwise intention is motivated by the anusaya, the latent tendencies, latent tendency to attachment or to existence, to sense objects, or to attach to existence, latent tendency to aversion, latent tendency to wrong view, to doubt, to restlessness. All these latent habits and tendencies lead to the karma creating chittas. So arises when the determining mind or averted chitta is influenced by unwise attention. The specific unwholesome tension, unwholesome karma creating chitta that arises depends on the intrinsic nature of the object. Like for me, this coffee is intrinsically pleasant, so it's got a potential for sense attachment. Habits, latent tendencies, including those from previous existence, mental training developed during Vipassana practice. And I keep making that differentiation because habits from many, many past existences can exert a strong flow. However, habits exerted even during after a couple of weeks of meditation can create an even stronger flow that goes against what's been happening for so many lifetimes. So meditation can have a powerful effect in a relatively short time. That's why I say latent tendencies from previous existence and mental training developed by Vipassana practice. All unwholesome karma-creating chitas include the 4 unwholesome universal chitasikas of delusion, dark, shamelessness, dirty, fearlessness of wrongdoing, dangerous, and restlessness, distracted. The structure of that list, remember there's 12 of them, is the 8 attachment rooted, the 2 aversion rooted, and the 2 delusion rooted. First with doubt and restlessness. There is attachment rooted with delusion working in the background, aversion rooted with delusion working in the background, and then delusion rooted associated with doubt or associated with restlessness. That is kind of an overview of the 12 unwholesome karma creating chitas. And in the last class, and I guess this maybe I should have done it much earlier, I introduced this acronym of RADICAL: recognize, accept, depersonalize, investigate, contemplate, and let go. RADICAL. I talked about that in the context of overcoming a mind that was restless. However, the exact same process can be used for all 12. If the mind has got attachment, recognizing it, mindfulness, right? Accepting it, yeah, that's how it is. And the mind is attached to that coffee this time. It likes it. Depersonalized. It's not my attachment. This is a naturally arising, or based on past habits and tendencies. Investigating, taking a close look at it. Contemplating and just seeing that, look, in a moment, it won't exist anymore. There'll be something else that some new shiny object that captured my attention, not just the coffee, or another. This happens as a natural process, and not dwelling on it, letting it go. So attachment, aversion, same thing. You can go through the exact same radical process to deal with or to help address aversion in a healthy way. Okay, that was a we're now up to date with where we've gone to so far. We did so this was a review class with a couple of distractions. Any questions? Will I enjoy my coffee?
Yeah, brother up.
Yes,
Chris
Chris.
here. Yeah, something radical that I wanted to ask. The most difficult the problem with us is we have a tendency to walk left instead of walking right. That's because, rightfully so, you mentioned it is due to habitual. I'm aware that there are AI, artificial intelligence apps that train us separately, yeah, because our mind doesn't want to listen to our mind. But somehow, I don't know why, our mind like to listen to an AI. Is it worthwhile considering? I know there's a bit of controversy regarding how the AI get the LLM and the training model, especially if it is not agentic. Is it worthwhile considering listening to an AI, not to let them make your decision, but at least for them to highlight your habitual tendency that makes you go back to the left again? That's my question. Thanks.
Okay. The first step in the radical process are recognize mindfulness. Okay? You don't need an AI to tell you to be mindful. AI can't be mindful for you, right? But you start with mindfulness in daily living, and you're already a big step in the right direction. You're already in a big step in the right direction. It's not the normal tendency. Mindfulness is not the normal tendency. Normally, we go through life without mindfulness. We just kind of stumble through and without being aware of the present moment. To me, the biggest thing we can do to undo those habits is mindfulness in daily life. Can AI help? Sure, you could have a AI pop up a reminder every 10 minutes saying, be mindful. That might help, but it's really got to come as a sika, a training from you yourself to mindfulness. So I am a little bit skeptical of the idea that an AI can rewire our brain. We need to rewire our own brain. And the first step in rewiring our own brain from going from unwise attention to wise attention is being mindful of the current situation. Because mindfulness, okay, there is a story in the commentary of the Buddha, just on the day before he got enlightened, accepted the milk rice from Sujata in a golden cup and said to her, or after taking that milk rice, with the strength of the mind, I have in my body now, if I'm going to become enlightened today, may this golden cup float up against the stream of the water, all right, of the river, flow up against the stream. And according to the commentary, he placed the cup in the water, it went up against the flow of the stream, and then went into a whirlpool, fell down on 3 previous cups from 3 previous Buddhas. So, but that metaphor of flowing against the stream is very relevant here, because the stream, our latent tendencies, are pushing us to always flow in the direction of unwise attention. Basically, mindlessness. However, and so therefore, just going along with that stream doesn't require a lot of intention or effort on our side. So it's, yes, we go along, there is intention, unwholesome karma is being created with all those unwholesome intentions. However, when there is mindfulness and a decision, all right, I'm going to be aware of this moment, you're now going against the stream. You got to work hard against that stream. Intention has to be strong. There has to be strong commitment. And the karma created from going against the stream is very powerful because of that strong intention. So, having the discipline, having the commitment to apply mindfulness in daily life is the basis of this radical process here, starting with recognizing, which is mindfulness. Even tougher than this is committing to go on extended retreats where the mind, you're training the mind so that that becomes its natural habit of applying mindfulness. You're sitting there hour after hour, intensely with concentration, or with mindfulness, developing concentration and seeing things. It trains the mind to work in seeing things in a as they truly are, in a wholesome way with wise attention. So where does AI fit into all of this? I'm not so clear that AI can lead to mindfulness. It can, right now it seems to be almost like social media taking us away from mindfulness, just another thing to scroll. You're worrying, you see something, you go, oh, I don't know why that works that way. You type it into AI, you get an answer. It's just another form of distraction. So I'm less excited about the AI as a tool for mindfulness, as just rolling up the sleeves and doing the hard work, going against the flow of the late tendencies, the habits that flow towards unwise attention. What do you
Thanks
think,
very
Chris?
much. Clear,
You
clear.
agree?
I think I get your point. I think mindfulness is the key, the foundation, rather than rely on an app. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we didn't get as far as I thought we would. That's fine. I'm leaving tomorrow to Australia. So next class will be Zoom. I'm gonna be there for 3 months. So I'll be there, I'll let you know when I'm coming back.
After 3 months, whatever you develop last night, your meditation,
Yep,
will you be back to square one? Or you will you back?
okay. After 3 months of being away from the meditation cushion, what will happen when I come back and go on my next retreat? Well, day one, mind will be just as polluted as it was day one at the beginning of this retreat. But after like day 3, usually, the garbage has been cleaned out. And the mind, I talked about it as mental training, right? So if you've been training as an athlete to do certain actions, you got muscle memory all built in. Yes, if you go away from your training for 3 months, your muscles you're out of shape, nothing's gonna work. But once you get past that initial stage, get back in the groove, you can move even faster. So yes, I will be back at day 1 in 3 months' time on my meditation. However, it is my hope that